Since the Industrial Revolution, mankind has been able to move from one place to another extraordinarily fast. With the help of boats, planes, cars, and trains, we've seen amazing feats accomplished. However, we're not the only species on Earth benefiting from these fabulous forms of transportation. While other forms of life have been happy moving inches at a time, we've gone ahead and offered them thousands of miles. Other species, in the form of passengers, gifts, or stowaways, have been able to invade unfamiliar territory and make it their own. These events of mass migration have proved to be detrimental to many ecosystems around the globe. Cases of Asian carp, toads, weeds, snakes, feral pigs, and many more have proved that the movement of these species can be damaging to the habitats they enter and the life that was originally there. Invasive species cause damage onto our economy, environment, and our health as humans. Invasive species is a term that refers to any type of living organism when taken out of its native habitat and brought into one where it is not normally seen. In this way, it invades a habitat that is not its own. For a species to be classified as invasive, it has to be proved that it is causing damage to that particular habitat. This can be damaging in a multitude of ways. The first way that it can be detrimental is economically. Diseases held by rodents and other animals, as well as invasive insects that assault crops, all while the invasive plants suffocate them underground. Invasive plants can make it difficult to prepare farmland and for crops to establish themselves. Subsequently, this leads to insufficient produce grown, sold, and insufficient incomes for farmers. Plants can also invade cattle pastures. When invasive plants outgrow the grass, it can slow the growth of cattle and increase the likelihood of poisoning. For areas where farming and cattle herds are the main sources of employment, these things can force families to leave their land because it becomes unavailable due to these invasive species. All of these events lead to bumps in our economy on a small scale that can quickly grow large. Spotted knapweed and feral pigs can be used as examples of threats to farmers. Spotted knapweed is a weed that carries a chemical within it that causes growth of native plants to slow. Feral pigs, on the other hand, can destroy crops and livestock. Not only do they destroy them, but they will eat just about anything, including the crops. They are also known to endanger young livestock and tear down structures meant to keep the livestock safe. The environments all around the earth are also at risk from the dangers of invasive species. There is a wide array of species that contribute to extensive loss of habitat. For example, there are invasive species that are capable of killing plants, the food of native animals, and even trees, the homes of hundreds of animals. In forests, trees represent the most vital aspect of their habitat. It is where animals sleep safe from predators, store food, and create families. Plants are also responsible for habitat loss. Vines can take over forests and make it nearly impossible for sunlight to reach the forest floor, killing all life there is there. Invasive species are not only a danger to land habitats. In fact, it might be reasonable to say that our aquatic systems face the biggest dangers yet. Sea life has found its way through canals, intentional introduction into new waters, and other ways. Over 40% of freshwater fish are threatened by invasive species. One case here is when the American comb jellyfish arrived in the Black Sea in the 1980s, eating zooplankton and zooplankton only. In the 1990s, about 90% of this fish mass in the Black Sea attributed to these jellyfish. The invasion of this species almost caused the crash of the entire industry of fisheries. This is because the lack of zooplankton as a source of food for the native fish caused starvation, death, and decrease in their reproduction rates. One invasive species could potentially kill off a multitude of other fish and the wide array of other living organisms that make up our oceans. Economical and environmental dangers are great threats, but when paired, all of these create the most relevant threat: dangers to our health. It could be explained as a cycle. The food web starts within the habitats, our environment. Without the habitats and with invasive species, our ecosystems die off. Without these, not only do we lose our economy due to failure of these industries, but we die off too. We will die from starvation, disease, and a corrupt economy. The West Nile virus, smallpox, and other newly introduced diseases all originated from some form of invasive animal. These deadly diseases can come from different types of organisms such as insects, rodents, fungus, and bacteria. The West Nile virus, for example, originated from infected mosquitoes in 1999. Climate change also has its own responsibility in the movement of invasive species. Certain weeds and plants that migrate across the world with shifting winds can cause hay fever, among other types of allergies, and even create new ones. These types of events can cause extreme damage in our society, as we have seen in the past. In conclusion, our society needs to be aware and cautious of invasive species. They are capable of damaging ecosystems, our commercial industries, and the well-being of this population. To prevent these possible catastrophic things from happening, people can avoid bringing any type of foreign living organisms back into their home, especially from vacations. People can also wear things like bug spray to prevent the spread of disease by insect, and hand sanitizer to avoid spread of disease, period. The only thing that could come from ignoring these precautions is death of hundreds of different types of organisms, as well as their habitats. Our food chain will fall apart, and so will mankind.